The hum of the overhead lights and the rhythmic beep of the scanner filled the small grocery store, where Emma had worked for the past 3 years. At 22, she was used to the ebb and flow of her shifts, sometimes chaotic, sometimes painfully slow. Her days were an intricate balance of scraping together enough hours to cover rent and save for her long-held dream of going to nursing school. This evening was like most others. The faint smell of fresh bread from the bakery mingled with the faint scent of disinfectant. Emma smiled at a regular customer, an elderly woman who always purchased 2 cartons of milk and a loaf of rye bread, before ringing up her items. Just as she handed the woman her receipt, the door chimed and a man walked in. He wasn't someone Emma recognized, which was rare in their small town. Dressed in a simple blue button-up shirt and slacks, he looked like he had just left the office. He carried himself with a quiet confidence, though there was a subtle weariness in his expression. He wandered through the aisles for a few minutes, picking up a small basket of items: a loaf of bread, a block of cheese, a box of crackers, and a bottle of orange juice. He approached Emma's register, offering a polite smile as he set his basket down. "Good evening," he said, his voice warm but unassuming. "Evening," Emma replied, scanning his items. "How's your day going?" "Busy," he admitted, running a hand through his neatly combed dark hair. "But not bad." Emma nodded, her hands moving automatically as she placed his items in a paper bag. "That'll be $18.60, she said, glancing up at him. The man reached into his pocket and pulled out a sleek black credit card, handing it to her with a small smile. Emma swiped it through the machine, but instead of the usual beep of approval, the machine let out a flat tone. She frowned and checked the screen. "I'm sorry, but it says your card was declined," she said, her tone apologetic. "That's strange," the man murmured, his brow furrowing. He pulled out his phone, his fingers moving quickly over the screen. "There shouldn't be any issues with my account." Emma waited patiently, noticing the faint tension in his shoulders. He tried the card again, and once more, the machine refused it. A quiet sigh escaped him as he checked his wallet, but it was empty of cash. "I don't understand," he said, frustration creeping into his voice. "I must have forgotten to bring any cash. This has never happened before." Emma glanced at the line forming behind him. The customers were starting to shift impatiently, but Emma stayed calm. The man didn't seem like someone trying to scam his way out of paying. He looked genuinely embarrassed and at a loss for what to do. "It's okay," Emma said suddenly, reaching into her pocket. She pulled out a worn $20 bill, something she had planned to use for gas on her way home. "I'll cover it for you." The man's eyes widened in surprise. "You don't have to do that," he said. "I know," Emma replied with a reassuring smile, sliding the bill into the register. "But it's no big deal. You can pay it back if you want to. But honestly, don't worry about it." He hesitated, looking at her as though trying to figure out if she was serious. When he saw the sincerity in her expression, he nodded slowly. "Thank you," he said quietly. "I promise I'll come back and make this right." Emma handed him his bag of groceries. "Have a good evening," she said cheerfully, watching as he left the store. The rest of her shift passed uneventfully, and by the time she walked home that night, she had almost forgotten about the man. It wasn't the first time she had helped someone out like that. To Emma, $18 wasn't insignificant, but she believed in kindness. If someone needed help and she could offer it, she did. What Emma didn't know was that the man, as he drove away from the store, couldn't stop thinking about her gesture. For the first time in a long time, he felt humbled by the kindness of a stranger. This wasn't the end of their story, it was only the beginning. The next morning, Michael sat in his home office, sipping coffee and staring at the balance sheet on his laptop. He had always kept his life orderly, from his perfectly aligned spreadsheets to his meticulously planned schedule. That's why the card issue from the grocery store had caught him so off guard. After spending part of the evening on the phone with his bank, he had learned the reason for the card's decline: a routine security freeze triggered by an international purchase earlier in the week. The situation was resolved quickly, but Michael couldn't shake the encounter from his mind. He thought about the young cashier, her calm demeanor, her effortless kindness. She didn't know who he was, didn't know that the $18 she had offered so freely was pocket change to him, a millionaire who rarely carried cash but always had access to his wealth. Yet, for all his success, he couldn't remember the last time someone had helped him without expecting anything in return. By mid-afternoon, Michael decided he needed to go back. He wasn't sure how to explain his gratitude without making it awkward, but he knew he wanted to do more than just repay her. When he arrived at the grocery store, it was busy. The parking lot was nearly full, and through the glass windows, he could see Emma at her register, expertly scanning items with the same calm focus he remembered. He waited until the line dwindled before approaching, carrying a small envelope in his pocket. Emma looked up as he stepped forward, her face lighting up with recognition. "Oh, hi," she said with a smile. "Did everything work out with your card?" "It did," Michael said, feeling an odd mix of relief and nervousness. "It turns out the bank froze it because of a security flag. I'm sorry about all that yesterday." "It happens," Emma replied, shrugging lightly. "I'm just glad you got it sorted." Michael hesitated for a moment, then reached into his pocket and pulled out the envelope. He placed it on the counter between them. "This is for you," he said. Emma frowned slightly, looking at the envelope like it might bite. "What is it?" "Open it," Michael encouraged. She unfolded the flap and pulled out a crisp $100 bill. Her eyes widened in surprise. "This is way too much," she said immediately, pushing it back toward him. "You don't owe me anything. I was happy to help." Michael shook his head. "It's not about owing you," he said. "It's about thanking you. What you did yesterday meant more to me than you realize. Please, just take it." Emma hesitated, her instincts telling her to decline. But the sincerity in Michael's expression made her pause. "Okay," she said finally, tucking the bill back into the envelope. "Thank you. That's very generous of you." Michael smiled, relieved. "There's one more thing," he said. "If you have a minute, I'd like to talk to you about something." Emma glanced at the clock. Her break was coming up soon, so she nodded. "Sure," she said. Michael waited while she finished her shift, and when she joined him at one of the small outdoor tables near the store, he began to explain. "I don't think I introduced myself yesterday," he said, extending a hand. "I'm Michael." "Emma," she replied, shaking his hand. "Well, Emma," Michael said, "there's something you should know about me. I don't usually share this, but I think it's important for what I want to say. I'm not just some random guy from out of town. I run a software company, and I've been fortunate enough that it's done well. Very well, actually." Emma blinked, her brow furrowing as she processed his words. "So you're rich?" she asked cautiously. Michael chuckled. "That's one way to put it," he admitted. "I've been lucky, but I've also been so focused on work and success that I think I've lost sight of the little things. Yesterday you reminded me of what really matters: kindness, decency. The way people should look out for each other. It's been a long time since anyone did something like that for me." Emma didn't know how to respond. She had assumed Michael was just a regular guy, someone passing through town, but now she realized there was much more to his story. "Here's the thing," Michael continued. "I want to do something to show you how much I appreciate what you did. Not just the money I gave you, but something more meaningful. I'd like to help you with whatever you're working toward." Emma frowned slightly, unsure where this was going. "I don't understand," she said. "I mean your goals," Michael explained. "What are you saving for? What's your dream?" Emma hesitated. It felt strange to share something so personal with someone she had only just met. But there was a sincerity in Michael's tone that made her believe he genuinely wanted to help. "I want to go to nursing school," she admitted finally. "I've been saving for it for a couple of years now, but it's slow going. Between rent and bills, there's not much left over." Michael nodded thoughtfully. "How much do you need?" he asked. Emma blinked. startled. For school. Yes, Michael said. How much would it take to make this dream happen? Emma hesitated again, her cheeks flushing with embarrassment. It's a lot, she said. I've been trying to save at least $10,000 for tuition and other expenses, but I'm nowhere near that yet. Michael smiled, reaching into his pocket for another envelope. He slid it across the table. That's $5,000, he said. Consider it a head start. Emma stared at the envelope, her heart pounding. Are you serious? Completely, Michael said. And I'd like to offer to cover the rest of your tuition when the time comes. No strings, no expectations. I just want to see you succeed. Emma felt tears prick her eyes as she stared at the envelope, unable to believe what she was hearing. Why would you do this for me? She asked softly. Michael smiled. Because you believed in me, even for just a moment, he said. And now I want to believe in you. As Emma sat there, holding the envelope, she realized her life was about to change in ways she never could have imagined. Emma walked home from her meeting with Michael that evening in a daze, clutching the envelope in her bag as though it might vanish if she let go of it for even a second. Her small apartment was just as she had left it, neatly organized but undeniably modest. She placed the envelope on her kitchen table, sat down and stared at it for what felt like an eternity. $5,000. It was more money than she had ever had in one place at one time. It was a number that had always seemed unattainable, a finish line that kept moving farther away no matter how hard she worked. Yet here it was, gifted to her by a man she'd met only days ago. The enormity of what this could mean started to sink in. With Michael's help, her dream of becoming a nurse was no longer a distant fantasy. She could start thinking about applying to programs now, not in a few years. Despite her excitement, a nagging sense of doubt crept in. Was it fair to accept such a gift? What if Michael regretted helping her? What if, somehow, she didn't live up to his expectations? That night, Emma couldn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, torn between gratitude and uncertainty. The following day, she decided to take action. If she was going to accept Michael's help, she wanted to prove to herself and to him that she was serious about her future. She spent hours researching nursing programs, making lists of application deadlines, and calculating what her expenses might look like. She called her best friend, Sarah, to share the news. Wait, Sarah said after Emma finished explaining. You're telling me some guy you met at the store is paying for your tuition? Well, not all of it yet, Emma clarified. But he's already given me $5,000, and he said he'd cover the rest when the time comes. That's unbelievable, Sarah said, her tone a mix of shock and awe. Are you sure he's legit? I think so, Emma replied, though even she couldn't entirely believe it. He's a millionaire, apparently. He owns some big software company. And he just gave you the money, no strings attached, Sarah asked. Emma nodded, even though Sarah couldn't see her. Yeah. He said it was because I helped him first, and he wanted to pay it forward. Sarah let out a low whistle. That's incredible. You deserve it, Emma. You work harder than anyone I know. The encouragement from Sarah gave Emma a much-needed boost of confidence. By the end of the week, she had narrowed her list down to 3 nursing programs and started preparing her application materials. Meanwhile, Michael had been reflecting on their meeting with a sense of quiet satisfaction. He had spent years building his company from the ground up, but moments like this, seeing how his success could make a real difference in someone's life, felt more meaningful than any business deal. Michael couldn't stop thinking about Emma's determination. Despite her modest circumstances, she radiated a sense of resilience and purpose that inspired him. Her story reminded him of his own humble beginnings, back when he was just a college dropout working out of a tiny apartment with nothing but an idea and a laptop. He decided to check in with her, sending a quick text. Michael, hi Emma. Just wanted to see how things are going. Let me know if there's anything else I can do to help. Emma smiled when she saw the message. she responded quickly. Emma, hi Michael. Thanks for checking in. I've been working on my nursing school applications. Your support has made such a difference already. Michael, that's great to hear. Let me know when you're ready to submit the applications. I'd like to cover any fees. Emma hesitated for a moment, still adjusting to the idea of accepting so much help, but then she replied. Emma, thank you, Michael. I really appreciate everything you're doing. Their exchange was brief, but it left both of them feeling a renewed sense of purpose. Weeks turned into months as Emma dove headfirst into her preparations. She balanced her shifts at the grocery store with studying for entrance exams and writing personal statements. Michael continued to check in periodically, offering encouragement and advice. One evening, as they met for coffee to catch up, Michael shared a little more about his own journey. I know what it's like to feel like you're chasing something that's always out of reach, he said, stirring his tea. When I started my company, I was living off ramen and working 20-hour days. There were so many times I thought about giving up. What kept you going? Emma asked. Michael smiled thoughtfully. I had people who believed in me, he said. Friends, mentors, even strangers who took a chance on me when they didn't have to. It's amazing what a little support can do. Emma nodded, her expression thoughtful. I guess I'm starting to understand that, she said. Michael leaned back in his chair, watching her closely. You're going to make a great nurse, he said. I can tell. Emma's cheeks flushed with gratitude. I hope so, she said. I want to be someone people can count on, the way you've been for me. As their conversation continued, both of them felt a growing sense of connection, not just as benefactor and recipient, but as two people whose lives had intersected in a way neither of them could have predicted. For Michael, helping Emma had reignited a passion for using his success to make a difference. For Emma, Michael's generosity was more than just financial. It was a reminder that sometimes, all it takes is one act of kindness to change the course of a life. The months that followed brought changes to Emma's life that she hadn't dared to imagine before. With Michael's support, she applied to 3 nursing programs, each one more competitive than the last. She spent countless nights perfecting her personal statements, pouring her heart into essays about why she wanted to become a nurse, and how her life experiences had prepared her for the challenges of the profession. Michael, true to his word, paid for all her application fees without hesitation. He even arranged for a professional tutor to help Emma prepare for the entrance exams, insisting that she deserved every advantage. It's not just about you getting into a program, he said one day during one of their regular check-ins. It's about making sure you thrive once you're there. You have everything it takes, Emma. Let's make sure the world knows it. Emma's gratitude grew with each passing day. But so did her sense of responsibility. She wanted to prove to Michael that his belief in her wasn't misplaced. She doubled down on her efforts, cutting back on distractions and focusing on her goals with laser-like determination. In the midst of her busy schedule, Emma couldn't help but notice how much her relationship with Michael had evolved. What had started as a chance encounter at a grocery store had turned into something more meaningful. They weren't just benefactor and recipient anymore, they were friends. Michael, for his part, found himself looking forward to their meetings more than he cared to admit. Emma's optimism and drive reminded him of why he had started his own journey years ago. Her story had become a source of inspiration for him, and he often found himself reflecting on how much she had already achieved, despite the odds stacked against her. One chilly evening, as they met for dinner at a small cafe near Emma's apartment, she brought him an update. I got my first acceptance letter today, she said, her face lighting up with excitement. Michael's expression mirrored her joy. That's incredible, he said. Which program? The community college one, Emma said. It's not as big as the others, but it's a solid program and it's affordable. I think I might go for it. Michael nodded, his mind already turning to logistics. If that's what feels right to you, then go for it, he said. Whatever you choose, I'm here to help. Emma smiled, feeling a warmth she hadn't felt in years. I can't thank you enough, she said softly. This wouldn't be possible without you. Michael shook his head. Don't sell yourself short, he said. You're the one putting in the work. I'm just giving you a little push. As they finished their meal, Emma hesitated, then decided to bring up something that had been on her mind. Michael, she began, her tone hesitant. Can I ask you something? Of course, he said, setting down his fork. Why me, she asked. You could have helped anyone. Why did you choose to go out of your way for someone like me? Michael leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. Because you remind me of the kind of person I used to be, he said. When I was younger, I didn't have much, but I had people who believed in me. They didn't have to, but they did, and it changed my life. I want to do the same for you. Emma nodded slowly, her eyes glistening. You've done more than enough already, she said. Michael smiled. This is just the beginning, he said. In the weeks that followed, Emma continued preparing for her transition to nursing school. She gave her notice at the grocery store, a bittersweet moment that marked the end of one chapter and the start of another. Her coworkers threw her a small farewell party, and even the regular customers she had served for years stopped by to wish her well. On her last day, as she packed up her things and prepared to leave, Michael surprised her with a visit. I thought I'd stop by and see you off, he said, holding a small gift bag. Emma smiled, touched by the gesture. You didn't have to do that, she said. Michael handed her the bag. Inside was a leather-bound notebook with her initials embossed on the cover. For your first day of nursing school, he said. Every great journey starts with a good plan. Emma laughed, tears of gratitude threatening to spill over. You're unbelievable, she said. As they walked out of the store together, Emma felt a deep sense of peace. Her life was changing in ways she never thought possible, and for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. Michael, watching her take her first steps into this new chapter, felt an equally profound sense of fulfillment. He had started this journey to repay a small act of kindness, but somewhere along the way he had found something far greater, a renewed sense of purpose, and a friendship that had changed both their lives for the better. Emma's first day at nursing school was filled with excitement, nerves, and the thrill of stepping into a world she had dreamed of for years. The crisp white coat she'd been issued felt like a symbol of everything she had worked for, a promise of the future she was building. Her instructors introduced her to the rigorous program, outlining what the next 2 years would look like. The schedule was demanding, but Emma felt ready. She wasn't just here for herself anymore. She was here because of the faith Michael had placed in her, and she was determined to make him proud. Michael, meanwhile, had stayed in touch with Emma, though less frequently now. He understood that she needed space to focus on her studies, but he kept tabs on her progress from a distance. Every once in a while he would send her an encouraging text or a small care package, coffee gift cards, study guides, or even just a handwritten note reminding her that she was capable of anything. Months passed, and Emma found herself thriving in her program. It wasn't easy. Long nights of studying, grueling exams, and challenging clinical rotations tested her resolve, but every time she felt like giving up, she thought of Michael's unwavering belief in her. One evening, after an especially difficult exam, Emma sat down to write Michael an email. Subject: Thank you. Hi Michael. I just wanted to take a moment to thank you again for everything you've done for me. I don't think I could have made it this far without your support. Nursing school is tougher than I imagined, but it's also more rewarding than I ever dreamed. Today, during my clinical rotation, I helped care for an elderly woman who reminded me of one of our regulars from the grocery store. It made me realize how much I've grown and how much closer I am to becoming the kind of nurse I've always wanted to be. Your kindness changed my life, and I promise I'll pay it forward someday. Hope you're doing well. Emma. Michael smiled when he read her email. It was a small reminder of why he had started helping her in the first place. He replied quickly. Subject thank you. Emma. I'm so proud of you. I always knew you had what it takes, and it's amazing to see you proving it every day. Keep pushing forward, you're going to make an incredible nurse. And don't worry about paying it forward just yet. Focus on becoming the best version of yourself, and the rest will follow. Take care. Mind me. Michael. Ian. As Emma's journey continued, she began to see the ripple effect of the kindness she had received. She started volunteering at a local free clinic, inspired by her own experiences of living paycheck to paycheck. Helping others in similar circumstances gave her a sense of purpose, and she often thought of Michael when she worked with patients who had little but gave so much in return. 2 years later, on the day of her nursing school graduation, Emma stood in front of her classmates, her white coat pristine and her name embroidered over her heart. She had been chosen to give a speech, and as she stepped up to the podium, she felt a rush of emotion. 2 years ago, I was a cashier at a grocery store, she began, her voice steady despite the lump in her throat. I was working hard, but I didn't know if I'd ever be able to afford the education I needed to follow my dream. Then, one day, a stranger walked into my life and reminded me that kindness has the power to change everything. She paused, her gaze sweeping the crowd. Michael sat near the back, smiling with quiet pride as he watched her speak. I've learned that it's not just about what we achieve, but about who helps us along the way and who we choose to help in return, Emma continued. To everyone here today, my family, my friends, my instructors, you have all been part of my journey, and I'll never forget the impact you've had on my life. When the ceremony ended, Michael approached Emma, holding a small bouquet of flowers. Congratulations, Nurse Emma, he said warmly. Emma laughed, her cheeks flushed with happiness. Thank you, Michael, she said, for everything. Michael shook his head. This was all you, he said. I just gave you a little nudge. The rest was your hard work and determination. Emma smiled, feeling a surge of gratitude. I couldn't have done it without you, she said. And I mean it when I say I'll pay it forward someday. I'll make sure someone else gets the chance I had. Michael nodded, knowing she would keep her promise. As they walked out into the sunlight, surrounded by the celebration of graduates and their families, both of them felt the quiet joy of lives forever changed. Michael had set out to repay a simple act of kindness, but in doing so, he had found a deeper sense of purpose. And Emma, with her future wide open and her heart full of hope, knew she would carry the lessons of their journey with her for the rest of her life. It wasn't just a story of giving and receiving. It was a story of how small moments of compassion can grow into something far greater than either of them could have imagined.